Welcome to the Explainer. Look, today we're tackling something that's probably keeping your IT guy up at night, protecting your digital life before disaster actually strikes. We all have those irreplaceable files, the years of photos, the critical tax documents, but here's the wild part. Most of us are relying on systems that absolutely will not save us when things go sideways. We're going to walk through exactly what you need to lock down before you lose everything. I'll back it up eventually. Man, if I had a nickel for every time I heard that. It is literally the most expensive sentence in tech. The crazy thing is, most people don't give backups a second thought until the exact moment they desperately need one. Picture this. You wake up, pour your coffee, open your laptop, and nothing. It won't turn on. Or maybe your phone took a dive into the pool. By the time that happens, you've crossed a line. It is no longer a totally preventable issue. It's a massive recovery problem. And let me tell you from experience, data recovery is painfully slow, ridiculously expensive, and honestly, half the time it doesn't even fully work. Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1, the data loss reality. To build a good defense, we've got to know what we're actually up against, right? And you might be a little surprised by what actually takes out our data. For most of us, it's just basic hardware failure. Hard drives and solid-state drives have a lifespan, and they love to just die without giving you any warning whatsoever. Then, of course, you've got accidental deletion, which happens way more often than any of us want to admit, or physical damage, like knocking your water glass right over your keyboard. But the really scary one growing right now? Ransomware. This stuff is ruthless because it can literally encrypt the files on your computer and any backup drive you currently have plugged into it. Add in theft and just the silent corruption of old files, and it's a bit of a minefield out there. Okay, I know that list sounds super intimidating, but here is the really good news. 20. That is your magic number. It literally only takes about 20 minutes to set up a totally automated safety net that protects you from every single threat I just listed. Just 20 minutes of your time. And the best part, once you set the whole shebang up, you pretty much never have to think about it again. Moving right along to part 2, the paradigm shift. Sync is not backup. To get that 20-minute setup right, we have to clear up the biggest misconception in the tech world today. I'm just going to ask you this directly. Is your cloud actually a backup? We really need to challenge this false sense of security a lot of us have. Services like iCloud, Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, they're absolutely amazing tools. We all use them, but they are sync tools, not backup tools. Just because your files live in a synced folder does not mean they are safe from the threats we were just talking about. Think of sync like a giant mirror. It's designed to keep a folder looking perfectly identical across your laptop, your phone, and the cloud. So let's say you accidentally delete an entire folder of family photos. Well, because your cloud storage is syncing, that mistake gets mirrored online pretty much instantly. Poof, gone everywhere. By the time you realize what you did a week later, you're out of luck. Sync is great if your physical laptop breaks, but it instantly replicates your mistakes. A backup, though, that's a totally different beast. A backup keeps completely separate copies and actually maintains a history of your files. So, the crucial point is this. A true backup is an independent copy with version history. It's basically a time machine. It lets you go back and see exactly how a file looked last week or even last month. If some ransomware encrypts your entire spreadsheet today, no big deal. You just go into your backup and restore the totally clean version from yesterday. Which brings us to part 3, the solution, the 3-2-1 backup rule. If sync isn't the answer, what is? Well, the IT industry has this golden standard called the 3-2-1 rule. It sounds technical, but it's actually incredibly practical for everyday home setups. Here's the breakdown. You want 3 total copies of your data. That's your original working files plus 2 backups. You want those spread across 2 different types of storage. Think a physical external drive on your desk and a cloud service. You absolutely do not want 2 folders just sitting on the same laptop drive. And finally, the big one. You need 1 copy stored offsite. Why? Because if there's a flood or a fire at your house, it's taken out your laptop and your desk drive at the exact same time. That offsite copy is your ultimate worst-case scenario safety net. And look, you don't need some crazy expensive enterprise server to pull this off. Let's look at a totally normal home setup. The original copy is just sitting right there on your computer. For your local backup, you grab a cheap external hard drive. If you're a Mac user, you literally just turn on Time Machine. On Windows, use File History. Done. Then, for that critical offsite backup, you use a dedicated cloud backup service. And remember what we just talked about. This is not Dropbox. We're talking about tools like Backblaze or iDrive, which are purpose-built to quietly back up your whole system with that magical version history we love. Part 4. Why incremental backups matter. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, wait, if I'm backing up my entire hard drive to the cloud every single day, isn't that going to completely tank my internet speed and slow my computer to a crawl? Nope, and that is thanks to the magic of the incremental backup. Sure, the very first time you set it up, it takes a while because it's literally copying your whole digital life. But after that, the software only looks for the tiny bits of data that you've actually added or changed since yesterday. So those daily backups are incredibly small. They just run invisibly in the background, finish in a couple of minutes, and you don't even notice they're happening. And finally, part 5, maintenance, testing your safety net. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the psychological trap it highlights. You set up your 3-2-1 system, so you're good to go, right? Not exactly. Just having the software installed is not the same thing as having a working backup. A backup that silently stopped working 3 months ago gives you a completely false sense of security. And honestly, that's way more dangerous than knowing you don't have a backup at all. Because if you know you aren't backed up, you're at least careful. If you think you're covered, you'll be flying by the seat of your pants, right up until the exact moment you realize your safety net hasn't existed since February. To make sure you don't end up in that nightmare scenario, you just need to do a super quick audit every now and then. 3 easy steps. First, open the backup app and actually look at the date of the last successful run. If it says 90 days ago, well, you are flying without a parachute. Second, actually try to restore a file. I'm not saying restore your whole computer. Just grab one random Word doc or photo and make sure it downloads and opens perfectly. Third, just double check that your external drive is actually plugged in and running on a schedule so you aren't just relying on yourself to manually plug it in once a month. So, as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final, slightly terrifying thought. If your hard drive just totally died right now, in this exact second, what would you lose? If your stomach just dropped a little bit thinking about that answer, it is time to take action. Remember, sync is not backup. Carve out 20 minutes today, set up that 3-2-1 rule, let those incremental backups do their thing in the background, and don't forget to test them. That is the only definitive way to make sure your digital life is truly bulletproof. Stay safe out there and go back up your data.